Hello, and welcome to another TMDSAS Office Hours. My name is Suleima, and I am the TMDSAS Support Coordinator. I want to welcome you guys. I know I was out last week, so um, definitely excited to be back. Voice is a little still recovering from a slight cough that I still have, so I hope that I don't end up coughing during the session. But it is now July, and so we are into the third month of the application cycle here. And I know that we are still getting some questions here at Team DSCS about coursework, some general questions about applying, some information about PCR as well as coming our way. So as you start going through the cycle, once you submit your application, it's in processing. Some questions might come up, and then once your application is transmitted, additional questions may be coming up. So to start off with, I will first will go ahead and let y'all know if y'all have any questions. Y'all can put those into the chat. Typically, how these work. For now, we just go ahead and just have an open Q&A. If anyone has any questions, it's kind of similar to in your colleges and universities where you can just jump in and have a chat with the professor and ask questions. It kind of works the same way here as well. We also have sometimes topics that we want to cover, and so we might do that more in like a presentation mode. That can also be helpful for you guys. But in the meantime, for now, since it is the peak of the application cycle, I like to leave it a little bit open to allow more room and time for those questions that y'all may have. But since we are noticing trends in questions, and we also want to make sure that we inform you guys about those trends, the trends that we are noticing at the TMDSAS office, like I mentioned, is about PCR. So PCR, you only have to worry about that once your application has been transmitted. That means when the application has already been sent to the school. So at that point, your application is available for the schools to see. You will also have access to a document that becomes available to you, and it's called the PCR, the Prescribed Coursework Report. So unless you're in that stuff, don't worry about that, but just be mindful of this um, what is it, upcoming topic that may be of interest once you get to that stage. But basically, I will link this link in the chat for you guys to review. So this link will take you to the application guide. We do have a section called After Submitting. So this page has a lot of information that is relevant to you after you submit your application. It would be nice to be able to just fill out the application, submit it, and then forget about it. Unfortunately, that's just not how it works. You do have other information coming your way that is also relevant for you to stay updated with that information and to also for you to know how to continue to update your application in regards to your coursework and your grades. So all that information can be found on that page, and I will share my screen so that way you guys can see what that page looks like and what it has to offer. Okay, let's see. All right. So this is the next steps after submitting. So like I mentioned, it's here located at the top of the www.tmdsas.com website. You click on Apply Now, Application Guide. It'll take you to our homepage. And then down here are all the different tabs and pages in the guide. So down at the bottom and after submitting, you'll find next steps after submitting. So this has information about checking your messages. So again, making sure that you are um, being mindful that you do have a messaging inbox. And so that is a way that Team DCS can communicate with you. And you can also communicate with Team DCS for any questions. So this tells you how to check your messages, our turnaround times, and of course, how to locate that in your application portal. We have some quick links here that are relevant to applicants and are informed by questions that we get every cycle. One of those is being What should I do if I have deficiencies on my PCR? So we can go down to the bottom part of the page. And I like to start here just so you can get a general idea of what the PCR is. So um, a reminder that this is something that will become available to you once your application has been transmitted. And this will have any prerequisite courses that count towards those prerequisite areas. So it'll have biology, statistics, English, all those areas. And it'll include the courses that count towards each of those areas. So you will not always find courses here that count towards that BCPM GPA. As you can see in this chart right here, your prerequisites, except for English, will count towards your BCPM GPA and also be included in that PCR. Any science courses, such as anything else that wouldn't count as prerequisites but would count towards the BCPM GPA, um, as you can see here, is included in the BCPM GPA, but not in the PCR. And that is because the PCR will show courses that meet the prerequisite requirements. So this will not include all courses that count towards your BCPM GPA. So sometimes we have applicants that get this report confused and believe that this shows you everything that is included in the BCPM GPA, but that report is not all inclusive because it only focuses on outlining your prerequisite courses that meet the requirements. So whenever you do find a deficiency, just don't be alarmed. It's actually very normal. Course deficiencies will not prevent your application from being processed, reviewed from on the school's end by admissions committees, nor it will prevent you from obtaining interview invites. So if you see those, please don't be alarmed. It's actually very common if you're a traditional applicant. Um, for example, if you applied in the summer after your junior year, going into your senior year, it is very likely that you still have prerequisites that you need to complete. And so those won't happen until fall 2024, spring 2025. So those courses may be listed on that PCR report that they do meet that requirement. However, because there's no grade for those just yet, it'll show up as deficient. So don't be alarmed because that, again, is very normal for it to happen. But that's just not gonna, that's an outline to give you an idea of what your courses look like, how your hours look like in regards to your prerequisites. But it's not gonna prevent you from getting any interview invites or getting your application reviewed like on the school's end. And these explanations down here also give you a little bit more guidance as to what those deficiencies, what causes those deficiencies, how to resolve them, and of course the explanation that goes with them. The most common ones we see are courses that were taken during the COVID semesters, and so those have a pass, satisfactory, or credit grade, and so that causes the course not to show up on the PCR. So courses that show up on the PCR are AP credits with the grade of credit, dual credit courses with the letter grade because that's an undergrad course, and of course your regular courses at your main institution that have a letter grade. If they don't have a letter grade, that's whenever they won't show up. So because of that pass or satisfactory or credit, as for a regular course, that is what prevents it from showing up in the PCR. Also say that is actually very normal during the COVID semesters, and the schools do know that they can always have access to the college coursework section. This is where you entered all your courses, so they can view everything that you've ever entered, and we'll see, oh, okay, this is a biolab, but because it's a grade of a pass, it's not going to show up on the PCR, but they met the requirements. Okay, moving on. We have other areas and scenarios down here that explain other reasons why you may see a deficiency on your PCR. So I definitely recommend that you take a look at these once you, if you see that you are deficient, this is a good resource to take a look at first. One, so that you don't freak out. And then two, just a lot of these, as you can see, you don't actually need to take any action with those. It's only in some very small instances in which we do, there is like a process and kind of helping you figuring out how to resolve that deficiency, but most often than not, it's not a cause of concern and no action is needed after that. But yeah, so just going back to this page, just the top running down, we have our processing times listed on there as well. Information about transcripts, don't need to send those in just yet. Checking the status of your letters and scores once those are sent over to TMDSAS, how to locate that information. Again, the information on prerequisites. Secondary information for application. So we have here listed some of the schools that will require a secondary application. It's just general information, how much that would cost based on what the schools have given us, and how you will be getting those invitations to fill out secondaries and whatnot. We have some information here about Casper. Some schools still require that. A list of schools that would require those are listed in the drop-down boxes. Okay. How to make changes after submitting. Remember that the biggest thing to keep updating on your application is your grades. Those are very important because as you probably maybe connected the pieces, in order for your GPA, but also your PCR to be updated, you need to have your grades, especially for those fall and spring courses that you will take in the future. It'll be very important for you to go back after the fall semester or fall term to go back and make the change from the NY letter grade to an actual letter grade, so it can be reflected on your PCR and clear any deficiencies. Other changes that can be made are also listed in here. Right off the bat, essays and activities cannot be changed after submitting, so those are areas that you don't need to worry about. Even if there was a mistake or another activity that you want to add after submitting, we can't go back and make those changes, so don't worry about those. Information about match is listed here. Um, Only worry about this if you're a Texas resident medical applicant. And a list of other frequently asked questions that you can also take a look at in that section. Okay, so I see that we do have one question. One brave person already asked a question. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop this into the chat. This time is for you guys to ask your questions, and we'll be here as long as needed. So without further ado, we have a question here from Mimi. There's a mistake on my PCR. How can I edit this? One of my chemistry classes showed up as lecture for credits only, which is incorrect. I have a lab and lecture for the chem class. Okay, so yeah, in this case, it sounds like this is a situation where maybe there is like a typo. Maybe when you initially entered your credit hours, I know we've seen it happen. Sometimes applicants mistakenly add 2 credit hours for a lab that should be 1 credit hour. And so they can message us and let us know, hey, I need to update this. We can go ahead and help you out with that. In this instance, this could also be, it sounds like, potentially with the course area designations. We have the, for example, bio lecture, which would be like your 3 hours of a biology lecture class. There's also biology lab, which would be your 1 credit hour of biology lab. But there's also schools that will combine those into 4 credit classes. So it'll be your lecture and your lab combined that equal out those 4 credit hours. And so in that instance, the designation, the accurate designation that you needed for the course area would have been the lecture and lab. So bio lecture lab or bio LL. So in those cases, yeah, those can be confusing at times, and that could be also, just something that can be easily adjusted. But definitely, I recommend sending a message in your TMDSAS application portal. Anytime that you send a message in your portal, it is connected to your application, so it'll allow our team to easily and more quickly go to the section that you need us to take a look at. So in this case, just let us know. Um, Reiterate this into your message, and then let us know what term this chemistry course is located in. That way, our team can go straight into that term and take a look at the course. A lot of times, whoever reviews your courses and processes your application to be sent out to the schools is not the same person that is helping you out in the messages or communicating with you after transmission. So it is very helpful for our team to be able to get that information ahead of time so we can quickly go in there rather than, okay, I see that there's a situation here. What term do I need to look at? And then they reply, okay, what term is this course located in? And then just waiting for you to get back. So go ahead and include that information into your message. So that way our team will have everything that they need to quickly go find that course and be able to help you out and be able to understand what the issue may be. Okay, so on my PCR, I have writing intensive humanity courses that I earned writing credit for that are not listed on the English prerequisite. Should I change the course classification of these classes? Great question. So again, with the PCR, it's going to show you the courses that count towards the prerequisite hours, and it may not list all of them. So if you do have other humanities courses, that could have been also writing intensive, but maybe were listed as non-science courses. Um, but if, on your PCR, I guess what I'm trying to say here is on your PCR, double check that you don't already have one that you do have a deficiency because if there's any changes that need to happen, um, for example, like a course appeal that may be needed, that can only be made if you are deficient in that area. So double check that you are deficient in English area. So if you don't see two courses listed in your English prerequisite area, um, then yeah, you would be deficient. But if you already see two classes in there, there's just not much to worry about because you do have two courses that count towards those 6 hours of English that are needed. And there's really not a need to go back and go through every other humanity course that you took that could have also been writing intensive for it to be included on the PCR when you already have two that count and therefore you don't have a deficiency. So if that's the case, I would say again, the PCR will just outline the just a few of those classes that would count towards your prerequisites. It will not include everything that you've ever entered in your college coursework. So if you do have your two courses that count towards those 6 hours of English, but you don't see your other humanities courses, that's okay. That's not a cause for concern, nor is there a need for us to move on to do anything to change anything, if that makes sense. However, if you are deficient in that English area, let's say that it says that you're deficient 3 hours or whatnot, then in that case, yes. Uh, yes. So in that case, yeah, you'd let us know or take a look at the um, other other writing intensive courses in the humanities areas that you know that you took. So let's say that you know that you took a writing intensive humanities course for spring 21. And you know that you took it and it also counts towards your English credit. It's not located on your PCR. I highly recommend that you go check that out first to see what the course area and grade for that course is. So as you saw, or maybe not, maybe you jumped in a little bit later after I demoed what the PCR deficiencies explanations are. But in the link that I listed right before the questions that came in. It does include that part of the reason why there might be a deficiency is because there is a course that was taken during the COVID semester or term, and it has a grade of a pass or satisfactory or credit, and that is the reason that it's not showing up on the PCR. However, if you go back into the college coursework section, that course might actually already be counting towards a prerequisite area and maybe already listed as English, but because of that grade, it's not showing up on the PCR, and that's okay. So if you guys, yeah, so if as soon as you see deficiency, just go double check that. And so in your case, double check that you are deficient in English. If you're not, don't worry about it. Not all courses are going to be listed on the PCR, and that's okay. It's not going to make a difference adding it either, just because it's an English course and it doesn't really impact anything just listing that course on there when you already have your two courses that count towards the prerequisite. But if you are deficient, go back into the other terms that you listed your humanities courses and just see if maybe you're in a situation where it is due to a COVID term. And then also if that's not the case, that way you know what term that humanities course is listed in to be able to provide that information in a message for you to send to us. So that way we can go back into your application and take a look at that term and take a look at that course much faster than waiting on the back and forth. Um, sorry. Great questions, y'all. Thank you guys for asking those. And they are very relevant to the PCR. And I understand that there's a lot of nuances with that as well. Initially freaking out, seeing a deficiency when you know that you're taking your courses, and then also understanding all these other reasons why your courses may not show up. It can be nerve-wracking, but yeah, definitely ask away if that is relevant to you as well. If you have any questions about your PCR, drop them into the chat. Of course, if you don't have questions about the PCR and have others, please also feel free to ask those as well. Jennifer, I hope that that answered your question or at least kind of gave you some guidance, like where to start and where to look so that way you can begin to resolve this deficiency as soon as possible. With our goal here at TMDSAS Support is to give you the tools and resources and information to help you and guide you to where you need to go to figure out how to resolve things, how to find your answers. And so, yeah, we're here to work with you guys collaboratively to be able to help you guide towards finding the answers. Because we're not trying to take a stance that we're the expert and we are what is it holding that information back from you guys. We're not gatekeeping. So just yeah, let us know if you have any questions, and we can definitely help out to work out and resolve issues together that you may encounter on your application or in instances of your PCR. Um, but yeah, definitely help you out and hopefully empower you to be able to address your and resolve any concerns and issues that you may see. Okay. And one other thing that I know that happens often with the PCR is whenever you do have access to that, not sure how to view it on your end. Just make sure that whenever you go to the application portal homepage, whenever you log into your account, you'll have a table on the homepage that locates all the different applications that you've ever started, and it'll also have PCR next to it. So whenever you click on those links, just make sure that your pop-up blockers are off. So that way it allows your PDFs of those the PCR and your application for you to view and download on your end. Otherwise, it won't let you. So that's just a little technical piece that I see can often uh, feel like you can't have access to something, especially when it comes to your application and PCR, but that is usually the reason why. So if you are trying to locate those items and you're not able to open them, that could be a reason why. So just double check your pop-up blockers in your browsers. Okay, let's see. And yeah, so if y'all have any questions, again, feel free to drop those into the chat. Don't be nervous, don't be shy. We're here as long as those questions keep coming in. So if we don't get more questions after that, then we'll end the session a little bit short. But we're typically here. We leave this space open for close to the hour, just to make sure we give you all plenty of time to be able to ask your questions. Um, and then sometimes it's kind of like when you're in class, you may not have any questions. You're just kind of joining in and seeing um, what kind of questions are being asked or what maybe trying to inform yourself like what is going on right with other applicants, what should I be looking out for, and so questions can prompt other questions. So we're also mindful of that. So that's why we give this space for up to an hour to let y'all process and be able to ask your questions. And sometimes figuring out how to frame this can also take time. So, yeah, don't worry, take your time. We do have the space for an hour, but I also want to be respectful of people's time. So, don't be shy. Okay. So, how long usually for Team DSCS to add additional schools? So it actually doesn't take that very long. In order to add more schools after you've submitted your application, you just need to send us a message in your messaging system on your end on your portal, and let us know what schools you would like to add to your application. That process doesn't take it's not very fast, or it's not very. It's actually pretty fast. Sorry, that's how what I meant to say. It's pretty fast to get that process started and add those additional schools for you. But with messages, those do take about 2 business days to get to. And right now, I know that we do still have a lot of inquiries that were coming in from last week that our team is still responding to. So it may be looking like 3 business days as well. So just be mindful of that. We will be getting to those. We do answer every message that comes our way, and our team is working diligently to wrap those up as quickly as possible before the 4th of July weekend, because we will be closed as of tomorrow, and we will um, be ready to be back and answer those questions and get those back within the 2 business days window turnaround as promised. So if you've already sent that message, say within 2 days, 3 days, um, don't fret, we will be getting to those and be able to let you know once those schools have been added to your application. And also, just for processing times and that coming to mind, I did want to let y'all know that if at any point you're curious as to how long is it going to take for your letters to be processed, your application, you can always take a look at our homepage, www.tmdsas.com. So once you're on the homepage on the right-hand side and the blue box, it tells you the dates that our team is currently processing letters submitted via direct upload and Interfolio. And it also shows the date in which our team is currently processing applications that were submitted on a specific date. So whenever you submit your application, applications are processed as they come in by date. So some days we might have more applications to process than others, just depending on the popularity of the date of submission. So that'll be updated daily with information, letting you constantly know where, at what day our team is currently processing applications based on the date of submission. If we get to that date and you submitted your application uh, 2 days before that, um, don't worry. That just means that our team has started to get to those applications, but that doesn't mean that they have ignored anything that was submitted beforehand and not yet transmitted. Just be patient. Those are still they're still working on those. They're still processing those as quickly as possible. I know our team is going really fast in processing those to get those out to the schools as soon as possible. So that can always be a reference for you guys to kind of just be mindful of where we're at and just to give you an idea of when to anticipate that your application and your letters will be ready to go. Okay. We have a question from Myra. On my transcript, I have transfer credit from a previous degree when selecting if freshman, sophomore, etc. during semester. Is it based on credits from one institution or both? Um, so in this case, it sounds like it would be for both. Um, I'm just going to make an example here, just based on your question. It sounds like you attend a main institution, transfer credit. This could be like taking a summer class at a community college after your freshman year. I know I did that. I took statistics at a community college rather than at my main institution, and art appreciation. So those courses, in that case, because at that point you have already listed out, like in this example, your freshman year courses. And I took these two other courses at the community college in the summer after I finished my freshman year at my main institution. I can go ahead and list those as part of my freshman year. Um, and just saying my freshman year includes fall, spring, and summer. And then starting in the fall, that is when my sophomore year started. You could also do summer courses are going to be the start of my new year. So that'll be my sophomore summer, sophomore, fall, sophomore, spring, sophomore, and then next summer when I take additional classes at another community college in the summer, that'll be the start of my junior year. So it's up to you, however you want to designate that. For instance, the summer term is usually where we get a lot of that confusion and questions. It's up to you how you want to list it. If you want to include it as part of your freshman year, um, up to like saying summers are going to be the end of my year. So freshman year, fall, spring, and summer, and then make sure that the next year you do the same thing. So fall, spring, summer, sophomore year, and then junior year will start with the fall, etc. So just make sure you're consistent. Um, and I will say that because it is transfer credit, you will want to list this under the school that gave you the credit for it, not your main institution. So using my example of taking statistics and art appreciation at a community college rather than my main university. If I were going in here and listing my courses into my application, I would list the courses that I take at my main institution for freshman year. But then for that sophomore year, I would include those courses as how they appear on my community college transcript, list those exactly as they appear on that transcript into the application, and list those as part of my freshman year as part of the last term of that year. I hope that makes sense. But again, the key takeaways is it's up to you if you want to continue that sequence fall, spring, summer, freshman year, fall, spring, summer, sophomore year, etc. And then just make sure that whenever you're listing those transfer credits, you don't list those under your main institution. You'll have to use the community college transcript or other school transcript that you took those credits at because that they are going to give you they are the ones that gave you the credit. They're the ones that are going to have that accurate course information that you need to enter into your application. Another reason for that is because once um, later on in the cycle, once you're accepted, the schools will let us know about that, and then we will then reach out to you to collect requests for you to send us over your transcripts. And these are your official transcripts, so that way we can verify that everything that you said that you entered into your application and you signed that you would enter everything accurately as possible is reflected on that transcript. And so, whenever we ask that you send those in, we will need you to send one from every institution you have attended. So, in my scenario, I would need to send in my main university transcript as well as the community college transcript because they are the ones that gave me credit for those courses. And all of that will come into play and that is usually towards the end of the fall semester. Or I keep saying semester because I'm familiar with semester, but I know we have people on the quarter system. So at the end of your fall term through the spring term is whenever that comes into play. As those medical schools, dental schools, and vet schools start to send out those acceptance offers and letting us know that you've been accepted or interviewed if you're a veterinary applicant. And that's when the transcripts come into play. That's when making sure that your courses are entered correctly under the correct school. That matters so that it doesn't hold up the validation process of your application at that point. So a lot of details, a lot of information. Let me know if you still have questions, Myra, if you need additional clarification. I hope that that made sense, but if not, just let me know and I can see how I can help you out with that. Okay, and so speaking of different stages of the application cycle, I'm hoping that I can kind of give you guys an idea of what to anticipate as the cycle continues to move on. In August, as of August 1st, for medical applicants, the medical schools will start sending out interview invites. And so, again, don't worry if you have deficiencies on your PCR. That's not going to interfere with that process and them expressing that interest in wanting to interview you. Um, but just to let y'all know, we do have a Dean's Admissions corner session that we host. If you're not familiar with those, with that series, we actually have a series called Admissions Dean's Corner. I like that series because it does talk a little bit more in depth about other areas and topics that are relevant for you guys. Here at the office hours, what we do is just mainly answer your questions regarding the application itself, filling it out, troubleshooting, guiding you guys on um, entering information, submitting, and then what to expect post submission, and updating that constantly. However, there are other areas that you will also need to be aware of and mindful of, and that's where the admissions dean's corner sessions come into play. And so we do have a session coming up, and let me just double check on the date and time. And unlike our office hours that are every Wednesday at 1, we have our admissions dean's corner sessions at various times between Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is when we tend to have the most viewership and audience. And so our next session coming up is Tuesday, July 16 at 10 a.m. And this is with one of our deans from the veterinary schools. And this session for that day will be covering interview techniques, and a lot of insights and everything you need to know about interviews, how to prepare for those, what the different styles and methods of those interviews can look like, and how to best prepare for them. um, and just a lot of information. And I'm very excited for that session because we haven't had something like that just yet that's very comprehensive and insightful, as how I've seen all our deans coming into all our sessions and providing those that information that here at Team DCS we don't necessarily have, because we don't work in admissions. We're just here and helping you out with the first step in getting your foot into that door, which is with this application. And so giving you that additional perspective of the dean and what to look out for, and then just the relevant information that you need to prepare for those interviews, and any other areas that they have presented on has been very insightful. So I'm very excited for that session. Again, I'll list that information down in the chat, but we will also be announcing that in the announcements page. So whenever you log in into your application, you'll see our announcements. That'll be listed there. It'll be listed on our website. It'll also be listed on our social media platforms. So just be on the lookout for that. And of course, if you subscribe to your channel, if you're already subscribed, you of course get those notifications, so you never miss out any of our next upcoming sessions. But that's where we will host these sessions. So I'm very excited for that. Again, Tuesday, July 16th. Okay, so just listed below is uh, key information about that session. So you can go ahead and enter that into your calendars and just keep an eye out for it. We will be promoting it everywhere that we can, but just so that way you guys get the first, y'all are the first to know about this upcoming session in 2 weeks. So yeah, just put it down on your calendar if you're interested. And I feel like you would be interested because everyone would want to know how to best prepare for their interviews. as that is the next step in getting into your professional schools and making sure that you stand out as a competitive applicant. Okay. So this is a follow-up to that first coursework question. So my first semester at a university, I came in with 48 credits from a community college, but I select sophomore for the semester. Okay, great question. So when it comes to credit hours, I know that it is actually very common that a lot of applicants or students go into their main institutions with a lot of credits. That puts them already at like a sophomore, almost a junior uh, level standing, which is awesome. Congratulations. That means you have less time and less money to spend in that in your college career. Um, with regards to the application, we just really need to have it simplified, just so that we can outline the different years that you've had as it's basically kind of tailored to like the traditional applicant pathway. So it's important to have those courses um, entered in a very simplified way, so that way the schools on their end can see what they essentially what they want to see is an upward trend in your GPA and be able to clearly see that out courses for freshman, sophomore year, etc. So unfortunately, entering the courses according to how it is on like at your main institution, where, hey, at my main institution started out as a sophomore. Unfortunately, we just need it to be simplified even further, just so that way that picture does pan out for the schools to see on their end. So in this case, if you, for instance, took a lot of dual credit in high school and that's why you came in with all those credits, um, then the first 30 hours at your main institution, so your freshman year, will have to be listed as freshman. Again, just so that way they know these are the first 30 hours that they took at that main institution. Everything else before that was pre-freshman. So it was all the hours and credits beforehand. Um, Freshman year lays out the first 30 hours. And that's why I said that that summer term can be included in your freshman year because it's approximately 30 hours. The next 30 hours would be labeled as sophomore. The next 30 would be junior. And in some cases, most often than not, for applicants that have a lot of credits coming in, um, you may not always have a senior year designation, and that's okay. Because the schools are aware that a lot of our applicants are no longer on that traditional pathway of starting out first 30 credit hours or at main institution. A lot of times they come in with a bunch of credit from dual credit, or even in this case, if you even transferred. If you initially started out your first 2 years of like your freshman and sophomore at a community college, getting your basics out of the way, in that case, if that is your how you started and then you transferred into your main institution, in that case, go ahead and list those first 2 years as freshman and sophomore. So you would do your first 30 freshman year community college freshman, the next 30 sophomore freshman. Then at the main institution where you transfer, those would be like the junior, uh, 30 hours junior, and so on, um, if that is the case. That's typically how I see a lot of our applicants coming in with a lot of credits. It's either a lot of credits from high school during dual credit or AP credit, um, but you have to list those first 30 hours at your main institution as freshman, no matter what, no matter how many hours you came in with, or the other scenario in which you are a transfer student where you started your first 2 years getting your basics out of the way at a community college, and then you transfer to a main institution, you still have to follow that logic. The first 30 hours of your first year at your community college will be freshman. The next 30 hours would be sophomore at the community college. Junior year looks like that would be at your main institution. So let me know if that makes sense. If it doesn't apply to you, let me know if it doesn't. That's typically how I see a lot of our applicants coming in with a lot of credits. Okay, so we have a question here from Melissa. It's part 1 of 2. Under each research activity, we have 500 characters. characters to include publications, citations, and descriptions. Non-traditional, non-trad, I have 19 research publications and presentations across 4 groups. Because of the citations without descriptions are over 500 characters per group, are there any guidelines as to how to compress this? Or can you share anything that admissions advisors have shared? Great question. So when it comes to the activities, ultimately it is all up to you. And I know that sounds a little frightening because like what? I have a decision on what I want to enter, how to enter it. The answer is yes. Just based on what the deans have shared, there's not necessarily like the right or wrong way to do your descriptions or um, listing out your activities. But they have shared, and we have included this into our application guide. So if you're not familiar with this, since you're starting out and filling out your application, if you go to www.tmdsas.com, and I'll actually just go ahead and just share my screen just because it's a lot easier for me to explain. Okay, so as you can see, we have, and I'll just remove the question really quick so you can see the whole screen. But TMDSAS.com, apply now, application guide. Here are the different tabs that mirror the sections in your application. So go to activities, and here's some insight and information that is helpful for you to kind of get an idea of how to tackle this section of the application. Basically, focusing on your narrative, what you want to tell the schools. So if you go to the how should I write my activity descriptions? So under quick links, we have various questions that we get asked about activities. One of those being, how do I enter or how do I write my descriptions? Based on one of the medical school deans, which we have her session here listed below, I hosted this session, so I'm very familiar with what she addressed, and there was a lot of insightful information. And what we did is we pulled from that and we listed it here in writing so it's accessible to you, hopefully enticing you to go then watch the rest of the session because she goes into further depth about other examples and other nuances when it comes to activities. Basically, the general rule of thumb that she recommended was using these 3 questions to help you figure out what you want to include in your description. So I know that when it comes to the research part, if you go down here under research, it outlines here um, the technical aspects of entering that research into the category. So, including publications, abstracts, presentations, and then if any of those did culminate in additional publications, abstracts, or presentations, or anything like that, anything that was published or anything that was big, you will then have an additional opportunity to use another 500 character count to list additional information about that activity. So, a lot of cases we have applicants who had something published and it's a citation of that publication and so they can list that there. However, those citations can be very lengthy and you don't want to run into having to have that take up all your space when it comes to those 500 character counts, that you have an additional opportunity to explain and give additional insight about that activity. And so one thing that I remember from the deans mentioning is, take every opportunity you can from that character count and make it count. Make it count, making sure that you can communicate what you want to tell them, and you taking advantage of that additional character count. So, if fortunately, if not the whole citation fits, don't stress about it. Just do your best. And with additional information about when it comes to research, if we go back up to the top, we have not only do we have this session with the dean that talked about activities, but we also have this one that we had with our director at Team DCS. More information about research, and and when you go to this video, you will find that the timestamps and the description of the video are listed in in that description. And so it outlines exactly where research was covered, what examples were talked about, the timestamp. So you click on it and it takes you directly to that part of the video. Since a lot of our videos can take or can be pretty lengthy in duration, and so if you just want to quickly glance over or hear what was said about that area, you can just jump right to that timestamp. We also have other resources as well. So we have another one that was, or this is just a repetition of that session that we had with our director, but also down below here, we have every year we host panels with the schools, and so we do have the EY24 school panels from last year. They do mention those school panels are mainly about activities, mainly about essays, um, and one more thing. It's like the comprehensive information that you need to know, and highly encourage you to take a look at the school panels, especially if you're depending on the school type that you're looking at. If for dental, medical, podiatry, we do have those. In here for you to take a look at. Veterinary school panel is also listed there as well. And I believe there's one more down here. If you're a dental applicant, you do have another dental dean session that we had this year as part of our admissions dean's corner that was specifically about the dental activities, since those sections, especially the manual dexterity, is pretty new. If you are a dental applicant, you're still unsure or unclear on what should be going into that section, this is also another great resource to take a look at. And the deans from the dental schools also provided information and insight about research activities. So I know there's a lot of videos and a lot to take a look at, but all those resources are there for you to review. It's coming directly from the schools, directly from the deans, and they will outline to you what they want to see. So definitely recommend for you to check that out. Okay, so it looks like we got to the end of our session or questions that were coming in. So I want to thank you all for being, super engaging into this. Thank you for your patience as well. Um, and hopefully this was helpful. But if not, you can also let us know if you have any follow-up questions. You can always send us a message, as we showed you earlier in the session, how to get to that, how to send us a message, how to locate that in your account so you can be in communication with us. Send us a message if you have any questions. That is the best way to communicate with us and to get your questions answered. If you can't wait for the next week to come for the next office hour. So yeah, again, don't forget we do have that dean session coming up on July 16th at 10 a.m. And then we will have follow another one after that, which will be on July 25th. And that one will be with one of our deans discussing student wellness and self-care. And as you know, going through this cycle can be very hectic, very stressful. And then we will also be getting insights about how to take care of ourselves as we're going through stressful um, events or stressful things that can cause a lot of stress, and how to take care of yourself. That will all be covered in the session on the 25th. So just be on the lookout. We will definitely be promoting that in the announcements page on our website and social media platforms. So thank you guys again for all the engagement, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.